So Townsend and I met about 34 years ago in the late summer of 1985. We were both freshman recruits at Cal State Bakersfield. And, you know, my dad had just dropped me off one hot summer afternoon. I was from San Diego. I was sitting in the small two-bedroom apartment wondering, what the heck am I doing here? It's 105 degrees out, and I already missed home. Soon thereafter, I met Rich Bailey and Bo Steinbach, who were also from San Diego. They were also roommates of mine and Townsend's. And then probably the day after, Townsend comes pulling up in his 1969 Chevy Impala, smoke blowing out the back, poor, you know, paint job, slightly torn interior. But if you ask Townsend, it wasn't, you know, an average car. It was better than a Ferrari. So what was also great about that car was that, you know, it became the team favorite mode of transportation. We used to put 2 or 3 people in the trunk and sneak them into the drive-in. So considering we were on a budget, it worked out well for us at the time. So you know what, when Townsend and I first met, I think from the very beginning, he introduced himself. At that time, it was Junior. And he broke us of that name shortly thereafter. But, you know, we had a lot in common, and we roomed in a little tiny room, and I think we bonded almost immediately. You know, we were 2 scared 18-year-olds thinking, you know, do we have what it takes to make it through this program? And, you know, my very first year with him, he was very laid back. He looked like a wrestler. He always had the physique of a wrestler. But from a mental standpoint, let's just say I'm pretty surprised he made it here. I know it's not supposed to be a roast, so it gets better, it gets better. You know, he was fortunate because he got exposed to a lot of good workout partners in the room and a lot of really great coaches, some of which are also in the National Hall of Fame. He actually, one of his workout partners was his roommate, Rich Bailey. And I remember the very first year, Rich Bailey used to ride him like a bull rider. And I remember the frustration on Townsend's face. Many a times he wanted to simply back and give him an elbow to the face. And I also remember Rich Bailey's, you know, cocky look, and that every time he'd walk off the mat and seeing Junior upset. But within about a year, his sophomore year, I think things really changed. His attitude changed, he changed as a person, his dedication changed, and that his sophomore year, he won the Division II national title, and then shortly thereafter, he decided to move back home to Arizona. I think he believed that, you know, being home and also having a coach like Bobby Douglas, whom he cherished and greatly respected, was the right move for him at that time. As you all know, Townsend went to ASU and became a 2-time All-American and soon developed into the wrestler that ultimately got him here today. But what always has impressed me the most about Townsend is he loves the sport like so many of you in here do, but he always gives back to the sport. I can't tell you how many times I've invited him to San Diego to actually do a clinic or to do a summer camp. And the answer is always yes. If he has the time, he comes. Part of the reason he comes to visit me as well and his sister, but he's always available to put in the time and help, you know, the next generation. You know, I think Townsend, and I've seen it actually through his coaching, has touched and inspired some young wrestlers. There's probably 1 or 2 out there that might be an All-American someday soon, and who knows, maybe they'll even end up here at some point in time. Today, Townsend is what I would think is a great husband, a great father, who has instilled the desire in his kids to also be very successful in whatever they do. His daughter, Tassie, and Townsend Jr. have recently graduated from college. Townsend graduated last week from UC Berkeley with a degree in engineering. And his youngest daughter, who some think is probably the brightest, is probably headed to college on a college scholarship as well. So it's a Thank you, Townsend. It's a true honor to be here. Thank you, everybody. It's quite an event, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak about you.
I've known Townsend for over 30 years. Like they said, I was a teammate for him at ASU for about 3 years, and I consider him like a brother. I remember meeting him the first time back in 1987. We had just gotten into the practice room. People were coming in, and I was a incoming freshman. I think you were your junior year. And as we're standing around waiting for the practice to begin, you kind of like look around the room and you try to size people up and say, oh, am I gonna have to go against him? Who's good, who's not? And I took a quick glance to my right and I saw Townsend for the first time. I'm like, wait a minute, who is that? And I had to take a double look, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this. We have like a celebrity in the room. I was a little naive coming from the Midwest, and I'm hitting someone to my right who later became a good friend also with Townsend, myself, Gerald, GT. And I went to the guy I was elbowing. I'm like, is that Prince? because back then, I mean, if you saw the earlier pictures of Townsend, he was like a very muscular Prince, and I later, and I remember telling him, like, yeah, that's not Prince. This guy's a lot bigger than Prince in his videos. But in all seriousness, at some point early on in our friendship and our career there at Arizona State, I was lucky to witness the change in Townsend with his outlook on wrestling. And I think it was about the same time that he started making everyone address him from Junior to Townsend. And I believe it was probably after that Sports Illustrated inside cover shot of, it was titled The Ultimate Nose Job, where Townsend was riding a wrestler and driving his face into the mat, and all you saw was the mat and then nothing else of his nose or anything else. And I think was that here at Oklahoma State? Yeah. I think that's cool. Yeah. But he went from a guy that was, a good wrestler to a guy that dedicated his life to wrestling. He became a student of the sport, and he began to get so focused, and he would spend endless hours watching videos upon videos of his upcoming opponents, of his past opponents. And like was mentioned earlier, we were roommates, and I don't know how often we would come home and I would try to watch a movie on our VCR, because that's what we had back then in the 80s. And it was just stockpiled with wrestling videos. So he would go endlessly viewing these videos, various technique videos, and he'd watch all these technique videos, and he would tweak these videos and add his ability to it, which helped him develop his own style of wrestling, which he later said, that's my T-style type of wrestling, and got him to where he is today, a champion. With his focus and everything that he had, he also had a great ability to teach what he learned in wrestling. And as you know, there's many great wrestlers that they're not always the greatest teachers, but Townsend had the ability to dissect even the most complex techniques and simplify to make even someone as dumb as me understand them. And I learned the hard way on this one time when Townsend was showing me a move that I had asked if he could help me with it. And remember, he got on top of me and he proceeded to take my right ankle and drive it over my left shoulder, and I think he was trying to touch my cheek with it. And I remember him, was in excruciating pain. I remember him saying, "Hey, do you think Prince could do this?" So needless to say, I know he was going to be great, and and here we are today. So Townsend, thank you for allowing me to be a part of this great moment. with you. So thank you guys.